Kangabana batumano kwa rabaisa evatoni. Hari fetla evatoni. Ntlo eo nkiwe ke batho ba bang. Ene batho bao ne ba sa batle hore re kene mo hobane banana re tlo repossessa ntlo eo. Re tlo ba nkela ntlo eo hobane ka di 50s batho ha ba exile. Masipala ka nako e ananka ntlo ya hao a fana ka yona. Ntlo ya ntate Walter Sisulu small farm re ra thola le yona bala ba fana ka yona. So batho ba dula mo ha so khutla hape banana ba tlo ba nkela bodulo hobane for dilemo tse 30 or 4 ne ba le plekeng eo. So in the book we try to cover Everton. I just want to pick in summary. We cover Everton and the history of Everton. But also we cover the history of Fort Hare. Tumanoko ya Fort Hare akopana le moratuwa wa hae Metaini Malangabi. Anahlaya kwaLanga. Ka 1949 ha qeta sekolo sa hae, unfortunately because of the adventures of youth I impregnate mosadi wa hae ka selemo sa hae sa ho qetela sekolong. That's why first bona Metaini, who was a very close friend at Thabo Mbeki. O lahla ka selemo sa 1949. Ka 1950 athola mosebetsi Manziville. Sekolong sa Manziville High. Principal ate le Ntate Mutupa. Ntate Mutupa na hla Everton. O qualified vets ka 1937. Aqala sekolo seo. About the best brains in the country. Aya Salisbury. Nelly Salisbury was Zimbabwe. Alata one of the best mathematicians wa Africa, wa South Africa. Ahlaitsing Alwan North, alatsa ma thola mosebetsi mo. Lebitso la ene le WT Kambule. Ramtsiba ola ba Professor Metsi mane vets. Ola tuwe ke Ntate Mutupa hore a khutle a tlo teacher maths. Ntate Mutupa a sheba hape a who else alata Ntate Tumanokwe. Ntate Tumanokwe qualified with the BSc. Distinction in mathematics and chemistry from Fort Hare University, even from St. Peter's. That's why he got a bursary to go to Fort Hare, fully paid up, because anapasitse haholo. So re bua ka ntho tseo in the book, we touch base on that one. But the last part I want to speak to, which is covered in the book, is the treason trial. Tumanokwe is appointed by Thabo Mbeki, sorry, not by Ntate Mandela. Babona talent hae ba mo kenya branching ya Orlando ba qetela ba mo kenya NWC, National Working Committee. That National Working Committee was established in 1945 ke Ntate Xuma abatla batho ba haufinyana because ba bane ba le kwa ba le hole for the administration let's have a committee e tlo bana le radius 20 kilometer radius from head office. They constituted the first time. It was an innovation on his part of a National Working Committee. Tate Tumanokwe served in the National Working Committee. He became a secretary, an administrative secretary of the National Working Committee. Babana talent high bookkeeping, writing minutes until Bamukenya in the NEC. Until 1958, he was Secretary General for ANC at a conference that was held in Pietermaritzburg. A motivator, Ntate Walaza, Ntate Kongo, was the Treasurer General, the ANC, Kanakotse. Kana Mabulu did not understand why but Bamangata clip down, Freedom Charter. Why this thing? So they thought, no, Kema Community, they want to, especially when the Freedom Charter was finally declared and read. But decided, 6th December 1956, Habato Baituki says at the festivities, Obatswara. 157 people were arrested. Kanakoi one. It shows the efficiency of the system in Maburu. Litswara about 157 nationally. Kimberley, Kurumani, Polokwane, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, villages at the same time. Batlega di helicopter babang. Batlega di base. That is that came to Hangwala booking Ari Nikituki says Aolorobala. My final notes because I was a deputy director at Fort Hare. Maburu again. Banki lady documents, and they use those documents in court. Fast forward, colleagues, without belaboring the point. Koto Yakala 156. 1947, 57, Maburu and Kekaitor, no, but one babang, they are not necessary in the case. Osale by 30. And the court case was removed from Joburg to Pretoria. They opened a synagogue. They converted a synagogue into a high court. 30 people stood in that court. Oliver Tambo was one of those people who were excused, and that is why immediately Samaya were exiled. Samaya were exiled because that's why the first cohort left, and the 30 people remained. They were represented by 3 distinguished judges, so 3 distinguished senior counsels. Fast forward. Nasen Onali Ausibareki Helen Joseph, booking high or every day, Nevada Johannesburg, Banga base, say 2. It was called a Congress bus by a Pretoria casing. Arbar Mandela and Asabatu Palama base. Mandela Natamali, Helen Joseph, Kakoloya Hayatizoto. One Mandela, and since he was a royalty. So she writes in that book about the experiences. Mandela about including Horton. The day we are liberated, I want to stay in that house. And it turns out that, I am not sure, it turns out that when Mandela went and stayed in Lower Horton, my suspicion was maybe maybe Kintwana Nakhalela Santana Lemnyane Ale Court. Let me try and conclude. Kaselemasa 1960, there's an outbreak in Sharpeville. Kadi 28, it's a March Maburu, I issue what was called, it becomes a state of emergency. And the state of emergency, one of the issues called, even the judges or the lawyers in court, by asking you certain questions, they might themselves be implicating themselves for arrest. So as a result, the lawyers are one as Ankaka, how lichena, Harasatola Piele, Holy Emela Nyewing in. Says our way represent until the state of emergency is rescinded. During that time, for 3 months, they had no legal representation. Nebasnamo emedi anaya court babuela. Kimo bankile qeto teng, which is what we call causality in the book. Why Tumanok? What is so special about Tumanok? This is one of the most special features here high. In that leprosy of silence, that ominous place of silence, the colleagues Kaufela, Mandela, Joe Slovo, Kaufela Bona, Bankile Qeto Yauri, the only person who's best qualified, who is an advocate in our ranks, Kwenantate Tumanok. He was junior to them. Bankat Kaeto, they showed confidence. No, you are the only one to represent us. In the place of 3 senior counsels who had left the scene. Bankat Kaeto Yaru Tumano Kwekianataya Piele, Ebe Muimidi Wabon. When the appointed date came, and the judge is Stumpf, he was a hanging judge. Stumpf called the session to order about a legal representation. Tumano Kevlayema Ayapili. And the Stumpf about no, but on what account? On account of the fact that I'm the first black advocate. Are where are your credentials? Tumano Kwemufa the credentials are high. And he was surprised. These are the judges who are used to sentence people to death. These are the judges who are used to petty offenders. The cases are rape, the cases are for the first time, they came across the black qualified advocate. And his name was Dumali Sile Philemon Nokwe, born and bred in the dusty state of Everton. So ordinarily, when you appear in high court, there must be an instructing attorney. Lesser qualified, who gives you a brief. So the judge asked, who is your instructing attorney? And he says, my instructing attorney is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. So at that moment, Mandela became a junior to Tumanokwe. At that moment, Mandela became otherized. At that moment, Tumanokwe held the crown and wore the crown and took the pedal and the pedestal. And the rest is history. So, I've tried to stay true to the responsibility. Inkile nako e ngata, wa tseba buka bana o dule, sometimes it takes time from your family. This is the second book. The first book, ke bua ntate Pesane, ke buka Free State that we have done, which we have almost finished. Tlameha re tlo launcha selemong se tlang. In conclusion, ke batla ho leboha the regional leadership ya ANC. It's not fashionable hore ANC commission e buka ka batho ba yona. Dibuka tse ngata tse ngotsweng ka batho ba ANC di ngotswe ke makgowa. You look at buka ya Oliver Tambo ke makgowa. You look at buka ya Nelson Mandela ke makgowa. Even the Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela e ngola ka boyena. He hired people, he was telling them the story, a bua di taping, a kenya di taping, ba ngola ba tla ho yena. It's rare that we have shown confidence in our own. Ke bone le monyetla o moholo to be entrusted this responsibility, and I said to Comrade Jason, re tla etsa with our best ability. Re tlo etsa in such a way that this book must also be prescribed by universities. We will try to push for quality, because this was a quality person. There was a time when the professor was supposed to come here, Professor Zite. We will sit with them, the restaurant in Zafandabele. From Villa Verde to Horse and River to going through the manuscript, page by page. Comma, full stop, hyphen, verb, pronoun. Those are the root of education is called grammar. We had to go through those things step by step to ensure that the book is beyond reproach. So, Kilibata Leboha, the leadership, especially Comrade Jason. Comrade Jason, Ubonsite. It's rare for ANC leaders to hold your hand like this. He was not just taking my calls, but he was also putting pressure. How far are you? How far are you? How far are you? He showed an interest in this product. So this is a legacy and an anthem to the leadership of Comrade Jason. In English, but he stewarded the process with parental solicitude. As Kisena was this in England. Yeah, the city. So, come on down, Diabulela. The Bamangazos being in cocaine in the Strebasake, Comsebenz Omhlaba Teleswenze. Colonia Kozayam, the 21st March. Retlaber launcher an updated version. Retlaber launcher for the public. Retlaber launcher Val University, Freedom Park, Guy. Enaki in-house. That's why it's not for sale. Retlaber update with few editions, few chapters. It was last lemon setlang. Come on, Somang, Kibatla Leboha. Comrade Mlungis, here's a baton. Here's an example that the previous leadership has set. We look forward to your tenure and what you hold in store for us. Dabule.
Enkosi Maqabane. Hayi niziqhwabile izandla. Ngeke ndithi niziqhwabe futhi hayi niziqhwabile. Ndanele. Masibulele Tatu Plaki. Siyabulela kakhulu. Especially xa sivu ukuthi iEverton ine history nayo. Thina abantu base Everton. Thina abantu base Everton, abantu base Tivas. Viva Everton, viva! Viva Everton, viva! Amandla! Thank you so much. I hear that Everton is here. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much, comrade. Comrade, we are going to hand this book officially to IQ, to HQ, because it was a national and international HQ comrade. So then we know that, as Ntate Plaki alluded, that it came from the previous leadership. Now there's new leadership that must take this baton and take it forward. So then I'm going to call upon the regional secretary, comrade. Okay, noted, comrade. Okay. Ki buka ke ga wa thola buka? Okay. Okay. No. We'll make sure Ntate Ntore the comrades tse sa tholang buka di fumane buka morao man. Di comrade dia. Oh, le bangata. Okay. Oh, le Everton. Oh. Okay, no, it's all right. It's all right. So then, comrade, I'm going to call upon our RS, comrade Jason Mukwani. Okay, RS Waro.
Mandla. Yeah, comrades, we officially want to hand over this research work that was done by the previous leadership. This is one of the legacy projects that the previous leadership will always cherish, archive it for future generations. In the organizational report, we did indicate that there are two important legacy projects that we undertook. The first one was rebuilding of the regional office. The previous conferences renamed that house after Dumanogwe. So the previous leadership then had to, after rebuilding the offices, had to ask, who is Comrade Dumanogwe? So that is why it was important that we undertake this important research work. And I want to thank Comrade Tameka Plaki, because we did not want to look outside Everton. We had to check from the community of Everton, who is well conversant, who is well learned to undertake this research. So this book meets the academic standard. So when we hand it over to the organization, we are therefore saying this is an intellectual property of the organization. This is one of the legacy projects that we want the HQ to always honor it, protect it, and in our engagement with the SG, before we went to Lusaka, because our own region was the one that also unlocked the repatriation processes of Comrade Dumanogwe. We went to Lusaka, but we did not just go to Lusaka. We went to the HQ, we met with the SG, told the SG that these are our plans. So we were supposed to have went with the SG to Lusaka so that at least the organization must take ownership. So it means, comrades, this book belongs to the ANC. Whether Comrade Jason is there or not there, it must be owned. That is why officially we want to make it symbolic, comrades. And like Comrade Tani has indicated, this is just an account of the previous leadership. I did emphasize in the organizational report that we felt it's very important that we must make sure that at least we account to conference about the work that we have done. So it means because his legacy and history lives on, we will therefore, comrades, make sure that at least we have identified two critical launches that we want. March 21 perhaps as a build-up campaign. We may have, because Sharpeville has been mentioned, we may have to look at the possibility of ensuring that
thing why books were banned. 500,000 books were banned. That is knowledge that came all over the world. And 100 kilometers there was a library of 200,000 books. They were also banned because Christians, in fact, in the midst of that, you'll find this Christopher Columbus had a relationship with the Spanish king. They did not want anybody to have any other knowledge except the knowledge that they were imposing on people, or that is of Christian nature. We're all Christians, but the truth, history is very long and stubborn. You can follow that history. So it was about the kind of knowledge that you could have. They wanted to manipulate the kind of knowledge that those people, the Arabs and any other person should know. Part of the reason why women were changed is because when you leave women are transmitters of knowledge to the young ones. And now, because the books were banned and women were left alive, they realized, but the knowledge in that society continued. And so on, the stories they were told about their history and everything else. And they realized, no. They then demonized that knowledge that was transmitted by women. And said, no, women are teaching these children, other generations, the coming generations, witchcraft. Now, this moment, Comrade Tammy, of launching this book reminds me of that history. It has its own nuances as to how it went. The same kind of approach went to America, what we call the United States of America today. That is why when Donald Trump and Elon Musk got into administration, one of the things they started targeting was education. If you remember earlier on, it is the same mentality that conceived white supremacy that they were actually invoking. So this is a very glorious moment, comrades, to accept, to be offered a book, to launch a book at the regional conference. Now you must then understand it speaks to what you are supposed to be doing. It speaks to what we are expected to do. In one commission, I listened quite clearly here. There was this notion of heritage preservation. It was belabored, it was discussed quite extensively. Now, this is one of your heritage. It is here, you must preserve it. You must read this book. In fact, one of the proposals I want to make to the regional leadership here is that because there was an outcry about lack of preservation of heritage, especially around Mfuleni and Sedibeng and so on in the region. No leader must not be inducted. In fact, all leaders, the REC must be inducted about the history of the Vaal, and in fact of the whole region. You must never become a leader without knowing what is the history. This is the beginning of taking care of your heritage. Because one of the things is that we are very weak on understanding our history. You know, a society that does not have a sense of its history will never be respected. You may find that some of the things that are happening in the Vaal, in our region, those uninspiring things, it is because we have lost that sense of history. Now, at this moment, at this conference, as the baton is handed over, the clarion call, Unhlaba Mkhosi, is that you must have a deep sense of history about your area. If you don't know where does this area come from, then you are a weak leader. A leader that has a weak sense of his history will never be respected. And history is very long. You can see now that the 1984 generation took over from formidable leaders like Dumanogwe, like Memangu. You know, is it 1901 when I listened? Yeah, the first teachers and so on, Bontate Shandu and so on. So it is important that you embrace your history. And once the leadership has a deep sense of history, it is easier for the members, for activists on the ground to embrace who they are, because history is who you are. That is why most of the time we always ask a question when we go into our townships. When I say, show me your area, people take us to taverns and so on. But they don't take us to areas, there are heritage places where we can be shown, you know, this is the history of this area. Young people today, they vandalize all the things that Comrade Sayu spoke about because we have not inculcated a deep sense of history. We take history as by the way. We just think, no, history is just something of the past. No, it's not. History shapes the future. With a deep sense of history, you are able to shape the future. Any leader who thinks that he can come in and move forward is misled. It's not a leader, that one. We all must have a deep sense of history. And history must be told by its owners. You know, so that we can own, we can claim our place, you know, in society and in the world in general. So this is a good starting point, because the history of this area, it's a history that has shaped South Africa. It has shaped South Africa. And we must always make sure that coming generations are inducted and oriented on this history. Now it means the regional leadership, one of the proposals is that partner with schools. Partner with schools about your heritage. You know, I once went to a place in Takastad, in the Eastern Cape. I was going to address a meeting there. On my arrival, the hall, the community hall where I was going to address, it is at the entrance of the township. And when I was trying to enter the community hall, they said, no. Before you can address us, we want to take you in the center of this township. And at the center of that township, Takastad, there is a huge monument of their heroes and heroines. And they then started to report, Yawaza Makos again. bathi nanku uNtsundu uzawuthetha ndim lo ndingumngxongo uNtsundu uMgudi uBhomoyi uZondwa uSophitsho yimi ungqolomsilo vela bambhensela ndinguzonda zintshaba ndiyabona uJumba ukhona apha singokhokho babo apha noBhejula yeah but they went the first thing they did, they introduced me to their history so that I understand who am I talking to or I will be addressing. So mona ra kena ratswa ha re iswi le mabitleng a shebe ra kena ratswa ha re iswi le mane. There are so many historical places. We must have a deep sense of our history. So in accepting this, I truly think that it's a great moment. In fact, when you were singing here, I was saying no, nishukumisa matambo, because that is the Val we know. That is the Val, that is vibrant, that is revolutionary. So you must never take this moment for granted, because it is a moment that says we must reclaim who we are in Sedibeng. We must claim our rightful place in Sedibeng. And Tate Moruti spoke about it, Tate Moruti Moerwane spoke about it in anecdotal terms. When he said, Val must come to an end. Yeah, Val can no longer be the sleeping giant. You can't have a giant as if he's in the circus. No, Val cannot be like that. Some of us, our political umbilical cord is here in the Val. Politically and otherwise. I was telling somebody my first Valentine's card, I got it in the Val. Oh, understand? So, we need to take this moment seriously. One thing that I love, Corey, the baton is a book. In this book, how little comrade bala funda about literature and how sa. So the REC, you must have your own foundation course about the Val, about Sedibeng and so on. So I hope, comrades, this represents a very great moment. How ntwe monate jwala ka hore motho ha mo supportile hore be moetapele wa hao hona le hore a o reke a ba o fa buka wa bona ka ba le bishopo ya o fa chelete ya o fa ing ya but buka o kgone e factionalize because the truth is here, knowledge is here. China are get the facts and we search for the truth. But worried, Timos. Allow yourself